I wanted to share with you a personal health story of something that hit me like a ton of bricks and something I'm dealing with currently. In the off chance that there's somebody out there dealing with this same thing, it might bring them comfort to know that they're not alone. Anyway, so about 2 years ago, 2019, I started to get some really weird symptoms. And I've always been a very active person, very big into weightlifting, and had an active job and was always in good shape. And in 2019, I started to notice I was getting lightheaded and dizzy a lot. And I didn't really think anything of it. I know I have low blood pressure, but it was different. It was like persistently lightheadedness, and it wasn't really for any reason. It had nothing to do with diet. It had nothing to do with whether I stood up quickly, whether I was lying down, standing up. I would just get lightheaded randomly. And it started to affect my job. And then I noticed in the gym, I started to get aching joints. The worst of it was my wrists, and my forearms were sore and things like that. And it just got weird. And I started to go to the doctor and ask questions. And nobody really knew what was wrong. They just, they would give me some explanation of what it could be, and nothing ever helped. And I knew in my heart, I knew there was a serious issue. But I was a healthy guy. I don't think anybody assumed it. They thought that I was maybe a hypochondriac or I was overreacting. So anyway, as the time went by, the symptoms persisted, and I tried so many things. I tried dietary changes. I tried supplementation. I tried, not working out. I tried everything I could think of, and it never got better. And then I started to notice I would have pain in a testicle, and I got freaked out. And none of this was psychosomatic. I knew this was all legit. And so finally, 2020 rolled around. Persistent pain, persistent lightheadedness. And then the beginning of this year, it's July of 2021 right now. So it was the beginning of 2021, symptoms were persisting, and then it was in March where I started to get this pain in my side. It was really, really bad. And it was persistent, and I thought, this is bad. I just worked out. I don't know if maybe I pulled something in the gym, but I'd pulled muscles before, and it was never like this. So essentially what I did is I just waited it out, and it got worse. And the pain was in my back and in my side. It almost felt like somebody driving a knife into my side. And I went to the emergency room. It was so bad I had to go. And I talked to a physician's assistant who told me that I probably just had some kind of a muscle pain. Or he even said to me that maybe I hadn't been to the gym, and because I stopped going to the gym, my body was used to working out, and the lack of working out is what hurt me. And I was like, okay, that sounds like bull crap, but whatever. I'll take these muscle relaxers and I'll see if it helps. Obviously it didn't. A few days later, I went back to the ER again because the pain had gotten even worse. And this was another physician's assistant who looked me over, and he told me that I had a bulging disc in my spinal column, and told me that that was what the pain was coming from, and to just take it easy and do some stretching and blah, blah, blah. Again, I didn't think that was right, but I went home. So a few days after that, I was in so much pain, the most pain I've ever been in my life. The back pain, the side pain, and now I had pain in my chest, and I felt like I was going to die. And I was curled up in the fetal position, and I was at my parents' place because I was so freaked out of being alone. And I noticed that my right leg was swollen like a balloon. And at that point, I was like, okay, there's something else going on here. I've got to go back. And my father drove me to the ER, and I was thinking, I'm going to die. I could just feel it. I knew something was wrong. And this time, since I'd been back 3 times in the same week, they had an actual physician come and look at me. And he immediately saw the leg swelling, and he knew something was very serious. And I was relieved in a way that somebody was finally taking me seriously. And terrified, of course. Never had a serious medical issue. Other than, these weird symptoms I'd been having for a few years, but everything was coming to a head. So what they did They admitted me to the ER right away, and they started scanning the hell out of me. They did ultrasounds on my veins, and what they determined was from my pelvis down, I was completely clogged up with blood clots. Both of my legs, my pelvis, my groin, blood clots everywhere. The most extensive blood clotting they'd seen ever in that hospital where I live. It's a very large hospital in somebody my age. I just turned 30. And so they, I'm lying in this in this bed in the emergency room, and the doctor comes in, and it's like he's going to give me that talk, like, hey, you're going to die. It's how it felt. He sits down, he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but you have extensive blood clots in both legs and your pelvis, and I'm very sorry to tell you this. And I'm thinking, oh God, what is that supposed to mean? And he said, if you're in pain right now, I don't doubt it. And I could barely walk into the emergency room that night. I was being stubborn. I didn't want a wheelchair, but I was walking like I'd never walked before, like I was just learning to walk, but it was very clear I was having some issues. So they determined that I had all these blood clots because, and here's where it gets weird. This is why I'm a medical unicorn at this point. My inferior vena cava, which is a vein that's about 1.5 inches in diameter, all of the blood from your lower half, as many of you probably know, for those of you that don't, the IVC, inferior vena cava, it connects to your heart directly, and all of the blood from your legs and your lower half return to your heart through the inferior vena cava. That's where all your blood flow to your heart goes from. And they literally didn't see one. They didn't think I even had an inferior vena cava. And if I did have one, it was so clogged up and so shriveled up that it didn't even show up in the scans. And they had done, extensive blood tests on me, and they had done extensive CT scans on me with contrast, and they just weren't seeing any blood return through the inferior vena cava. And what they found is that something must have clogged my inferior vena cava, a blood clot of some kind, when I was very, very young, probably an infant. And in order to compensate, my body had used collateral veins in order to return blood flow to my heart. So instead of one big highway where blood can flow back to my heart, I have a million tiny little ones. And just over the years, they weren't sufficient, obviously, and they clotted off, and all the blood returned to my heart from my lower half just kind of shut off, and that's why my legs swelled up. So what they did is they put catheters in both of my legs, and they started to inject TPA, which is a clot busting agent, in order to try to get rid of some of these blood clots and restore my blood flow. And I was in the ICU for about 5 days, flat on my ass. I couldn't move. And they just injected this clot buster, and then they would go in with cameras and they would look around in there. And they were able to bust up a lot of the clots, and they put me on blood thinners. And I have to be on blood thinners for the rest of my life now. So as of right now, the situation is I have extensive pain in my back, and my back hurts really bad. And I'm lucky to have one of the top doctors in the country working on my case right now at Stanford. And essentially what's going to happen is they're going to be doing a procedure in August called a recanalization, where what they're going to do is they're going to go in through my jugular veins and my iliac veins, and they're going to remove as much clot as they can. And then they're going to be putting stents in my legs, and they're going to do basically an angioplasty. They're going to put a balloon through my inferior vena cava, inflate it, and then they're going to put a stent through my inferior vena cava too, in order to maybe restore blood flow back to how a normal person's would be. And it's pretty scary. It's a pretty major procedure. And so as of right now, I'm back up on my feet, and I'm on the blood thinners, and I have back pain and I have joint pain, and the lightheadedness is still there, but the leg swelling has gone away. And for the most part, I'm going about my days pretty normally. I haven't been back to the gym. So I'm pretty much just waiting for this procedure in August, and we'll see if it can make me feel like a new person. It's pretty major. It's going to be about a 5-hour surgery, but it'll be interesting to see if it makes me feel normal. And I've never had normal blood flow my whole life, so it'll be interesting to see what that feels like. And I just wanted to put this out there, not so much to talk about myself, but just in case there's someone out there that's had either this exact thing or something similar and they can relate to it. Because I was looking online, and whatever this is, when you have an inferior vena cava that has no blood flow flowing through it, it's really, really rare. We're talking like 1 in a million thing, even less, 1 in 10 million. I maybe found 2 people on all of the internet that talked about having this problem. So it's very rare. And I just hope it resonates with somebody. And even if this isn't at all what you're dealing with, but you've dealt with a problem serious like this, maybe this can bring you some kind of comfort knowing that you're not alone. And please feel free to comment below, ask me any questions. I'd like to hear what you're going through. And I hope that you're all doing very well. But anyway, that's really it. I just wanted to throw this out there.